Good afternoon, Tracy. How are you doing today? Welcome to the season 6 EP8, July 16, 97th show, countdown to 100.
Oh my gosh, we
How are
gotta do
you?
something for 100. I'm doing
I'm
great. How are you?
I'm searching for 100. I love to make an A plus.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We're both a little bit of performance geeks, aren't we? Like performance junkies, probably more like it.
How are you doing this beautiful morning, Tracy? Almost, in fact, this afternoon.
Yeah, it's officially afternoon where I am, at least.
I know.
Good. I just got in from collecting blueberries, and so do you know what pawpaw is? I mean, you lived here in North Carolina, so you probably know what a pawpaw is.
What, Popeye as in
Pawpaw, the pawpaw
Papa?
fruit.
No, spell it for me.
Pawpaw. I think it's Pawpaw.
Oh, so we call it Papa.
Pawpaw.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Good.
So does it grow there in Africa too?
Yes, it does grow in Africa. It is with the million and one black seeds in there
Mm-hmm.
when you cut it through. So some people call it papaya,
Yeah.
and then pawpaw. Yeah, yeah.
So pawpaw trees are awesome. But so do you? Oh gosh, is it persimmons? So when you were living
Okay.
here, did you ever have a persimmons?
I did. I
You
did.
did. You did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know. I was thinking about pawpaw. That was a whole different conversation. Persimmons, not pawpaw.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
redirecting people. You gotta keep up. Persimmons, that's the word because we don't have papaya here in North Carolina. That would be awesome. Papaya
Mm,
and avocado, if we could grow it, I would be so excited.
mm,
But I was walking the dogs today along
mhm.
the perimeter of our property. We have new neighbors, and
Okay.
our dogs have a tendency to go through the invisible fence to go because they have children, and my dogs love children. So I have to oftentimes take them out on leash, even in the yard when there's children outside. So anyway, long story, we're walking and
Uh-huh.
I discovered a persimmons tree that I never, in all the almost 20 years we lived on this property, I never knew we had a wild
Wow.
persimmons tree. So I was out gathering blueberries and
Uh,
feeding my soon found this brand new persimmons tree
okay. Okay.
right before we went on air. So I'm a
You
little sweaty, but that's
looking at it, I don't think I've had one.
a persimmons.
Uh-uh.
They are awesome. Isn't it funny? They're for people who don't know what persimmons are, they kind of look like a squat
Squat.
like a squat, like somebody sat on a or those squat kind of tomatoes. So it's like if you know those kind of more flat tomatoes that grow more wide than they do tall. Yeah, so it looks a little bit like that, but they're orange, orangish red, but mostly orange.
Mm-hmm.
And they're citrusy, which is strange. I don't know if they're technically in the citrus family. It looks like a citrus and a tomato got together.
Okay, okay.
But they make really great jams and all sorts of things. But they're a native here in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. Interesting. So a new discovery today in the yard.
in the
Thank
yard.
thank
Ooh,
goodness for the new neighbors and the dog that makes you want to run behind. And then wow. So is it on your property or is it on the
it's
other
not.
property?
Yeah, no, it's on our property.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is really fun because it's kind of like we do have a woman in this area who's very well known for doing walkabouts where she takes you out into the wilderness and teaches you what's edible, which is
Uh-huh.
kind of fun to find out, like I mean, it's always good to know, what you can eat in nature and what you shouldn't eat. But she
Right.
does different varieties of these walkabouts, sometimes focused on mushrooms. I would never
Oh.
personally do the mushroom walk by myself because no
Mm-mm.
matter what I thought I was looking at, I'd probably end up with something that I shouldn't be eating.
Correct.
But it
Correct.
is fun when you're with somebody who's expert and certain times of the year, like she has a lot of elderberry, which is also a huge
Native.
immune booster and grows wild here in North Carolina.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
Wow.
elderberry, making jams and tinctures and syrups and all sorts of stuff. So it's fun. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
good
You know, you
stuff to
say
know.
that I remember we're in Liberia, so still in North Carolina here. We're in Liberia and we go to where our home is, the hometown in Crozaville. We get there, we're walking, we're meeting the tourism director of Liberia because they're about to have the Barbados, because the Barbadians came to Crozaville in 1865 to live there, the migration. And he's standing there and he turns around and looks at the hedges in all the yards, and he goes, "Do you guys know what this is?" I'm like, "No." He tells his AD camp and a couple other people, go and pick every berry and every red flower that's on there and bring it to me. And these guys went, ah. And as they were picking it, he takes it and he takes the flower part of it, bites it and puts all in his mouth and Then he takes the berries that are dark brown. He says, "Don't eat the green ones, eat the dark brown." He takes it and starts. He said, "Don't eat the seed either." And he eats and eats. And then he says, "This, huh, the antioxidants in this thing is amazing. Plus, if you're having an upset stomach, just take it and in no time, this is going to be, you're going to be healed." So I go, okay. He says it, and I'm gonna do it. So I go in it, and this thing tastes so good. And he says this is also a tea. You can put it in your tea and let it settle, and then you drink it. So now I'm walking around knowing like I know something, and I'm like, you can take this. This is
You're sharing it with anybody who
so
will
I'm
listen.
sharing with anybody. And when I got home, which is roughly about 45 minutes from where Crozaville is, I get home and I'm telling one of my friends in the yard saying, "Do you know that is?" He says, "Ah, a lady always comes in here and she takes it and eats." I'm like, "She's not doing it anymore. It's mine." But
Get
just
off the
so
property.
it's just so amazing how around us there are solutions, there are things available, and because our eyes are closed to it, we don't know, we're ignorant of it. When we do get cognizant of what's around us, and this is, I know I'm switching slightly, uh when we get cognizant of what's available to us in order for us to live next level, it's amazing.
It's
You
amazing.
know?
I was
Whew.
talking to my daughter. Well, so this, I already see where this conversation is going to go. It's going to be a little bit of health, a little bit of what you see outside, what you recognize inside. We talked a little bit about, the four,
Mm,
I'm all about the four intelligences, and I'm so passionate about teaching people how to get to reclaim that inner guidance that we have. So my daughter yesterday, I was actually leaving for something, and I was like, "Oh, I thought you were going to go to the gym." And she's kind of sitting at the kitchen table, and she's like, "Yeah, I'm going to go, but I'm just kind of." I'm like, "You okay?" She's like, "I'm okay."
mm,
So I go this morning. We're getting, making our NutriBullet shakes, and I said, "So did you end up feeling better yesterday? Because I saw that you went to the gym." And she said, "Yeah." She goes, I was sitting here and I started to not feel so good. And I'm like thinking,
mm.
I don't really want to go to the gym and then not be feeling good. And so she's like, I tapped into what was it that I was feeling. And she said, I just started to feel kind of like she's been prone to the UTIs like her whole life. And but she knows what to do. So basically
Mhm.
she's like, I started feeling kind of that icky feeling. So I decided, I'm like, first of all, I need to eat something if I'm going to go to the gym. So she's like, I made a shake. I put cranberries in it. Cranberries are a natural, good healing
Yep.
for that type of thing. She's like, instantly, I started feeling better. And she's like, I went to the gym, I felt fine, and all that. And I think the reason I use this, as an example, is we do know, right? Like if we
Mm.
take that, she took a moment, she took a breath, she didn't just push herself like, okay, I gotta go to the gym because I got stuff to do. And she
Correct.
listened to her body. Her
Mm,
body informed her of what she knows. She
mm. Mm.
followed, that guidance, and she got the result from
Yeah.
following that guidance. And it's it's interesting because so in the last couple of days I've been in some that speaks to this, some interesting experiences. So
Mhm.
we have a marketplace in town, that's a co-op,
Okay.
and there's a lot of local, farmers who sell out of there, and people who make tinctures and all sorts of, that's my nutty, crunchy, place to go grocery shop.
Gotcha.
And I went in there because I wanted to get certain days of the week they deliver bread from this one bakery that I absolutely love. And so I go in there and they didn't have the bread. They had like we're a day behind, but I'm
Okay.
getting ready to leave. And this older gentleman stops me and he says, I'm so sorry if I'm offending you by, if you don't want to talk to a stranger or whatever. And I said, sir, if I can't talk to a stranger, I've got bigger problems.
You don't know me.
I was like, if you're okay talking to a stranger, I'm okay talking to a stranger. But he was holding this box of ginseng.
Mhm.
And I happened to notice one of his arms was really swollen. It was almost like almost purple. And he's holding this ginseng and he said, do you know what this does? And I said, I do. And so we get to talking. And I said, so what are you looking for? Because there's nothing on the box. And I said, well, a
Mhm.
lot of these companies have gone very far the other direction because they're not supposed to claim if it's an
Uh-huh.
alternative. They're not supposed to claim that they can do anything. So sometimes they just don't put anything on there. They're
Gotcha.
like, you want to know what we do? Google it. But I said, well, ginseng is actually more for energy and vitality, and some people have to be careful because they can be sensitive to it. It can really get your engines going too much.
Mhm.
And I said, are you looking for that? He says, I'm actually looking for pain. So I said, well, ginseng wouldn't necessarily be the thing, but I said, have you tried CBD? And we started talking about some of these other things. So anyway, long story short, I'm very good friends with a couple who runs a local CBD company, and it's
Correct.
amazing.
Mm.
And third party testing, that's the only CBD I really trust. And so I got them in contact. I said, I said, if you're okay giving me your number, I
Mm.
will pass it on to my
Mm.
friends and I'll have him call you. And he is a resource, health and wellness resource that is amazing. And, he could talk to you about this all day long. He says, yeah,
Mm.
I'm a trucker and, I'm just learning about some of these alternatives and the pain meds aren't working anymore and all this stuff, right? And he said the same thing you did. He said,
Mm.
I feel like, and I don't know much about it, but I
Mhm.
feel like there are medicinal things all growing all around us that if we were to just re-educate ourselves on what we need, we would be fine. He says, I feel
Mm.
that. I said, well,
Mhm.
I would trust your inner guidance.
Yep.
I think
Yep.
you're probably right about that. I mean, I do think you're right about that. So anyway, I connected them. Well, the next day
Mhm.
I was at getting one of my infusions. I do IV treatments, for vitality and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So I was sitting next to this woman, probably in her late 30s, who's going through breast cancer.
Mhm.
And we were both getting our infusions. And she had been talking to this other woman about eating right for your blood type. I don't know if you've ever heard
Oh,
about that
wow.
information or that book. And it's all about
Mm,
supposedly there's certain things we should and shouldn't eat based on our blood types. And I am
mm.
very familiar with that. I mean, obviously coming from a background in holistic health. And so she said, "Well, I'm just getting into it and I'm be positive and I don't really know." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to be like listening in your conversation, but I said, you're actually a great, my daughter has the same blood type." And I said,
Okay.
it's a great one because there's pretty much B is for balance in a lot of ways because you can eat almost anything, but the exception is chicken. Chicken doesn't do well with your system. And I told the story about when my daughter was little, before she could eat solid food, I'd
Mhm.
cook chicken and she would cry. And she never wanted to come into the kitchen when I was cooking chicken. And I hadn't made that connection yet. So the very first thing I try to eat her is eat her, give her to eat as give her to eat as a solid food.
Don't eat her. Not
Never
yet.
tried to eat my child, please. Um, they do look yummy. You just want to squeeze them
That's
when
why
they're
I
not eating.
did want to
It's a whole
say.
different thing. Yeah, yeah, no, wasn't that going on? But anyway, tried to give her a solid food. The meat was chicken, so I diced up this. So I was cooking the
Mm,
chicken. She was crying, and then finally she settled down. So I'm trying to feed her this chicken, and she's didn't want to have
wow.
anything to do with it. And then I come to find out, I started reading the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Like she has, and then I started to make the connection. Oh, every time I cook chicken, she doesn't like the smell.
Wow.
And she, to this day, like she'll eat chicken if it's presented to her, but yeah, it's really interesting how we know, like if we allow ourselves not to override what our
Correct.
system knows. So yeah, I was telling this story to this woman. So we
Mhm.
get to chatting. We were the whole time we were there. We're talking. And at the end, she was leaving and she said, "I don't know how to express this, but she said, you've given me so much to think about." And she said, "This conversation was exactly what I needed.
Mm,
I've been feeling, all sorts of ways about some of my treatment. And I don't really, because we had talked about how some of the things I've been through and what I went through when my daughter was born and, the medical system and how much I've really learned to kind of overcome my aversion to modern medicine and really learn that the integrative approach is really helpful and
mm.
just through all this stuff." And she goes, "This has really been helpful for me,"
Wow.
because she said there's some things that I feel like I'm not listening to my inner guidance, and it's like you've given me permission to do that. And
Wow.
I need to have some conversations, some deeper, like I want to wait on some things before I just rush ahead. A lot of the doctors are saying do this, and I just want to be on board. I want to own my decisions, and that's been so
Mm.
important. I think I needed to talk to somebody who kind of gave me permission to do that.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so you realize that, because I was supposed to go over some test results with the person who runs this treatment, and she said, "I'm so sorry, I'm so overbooked today. Can we do this later?" I'm like, "Yes." And then at the end, she said, "I guess there was a reason.
Oh,
We would
wow.
have been going over your results when you guys were,
We're
and you
talking.
ended up
Yeah.
talking to her instead of that. And I guess that's what was meant to be." And I said, "I really think so too."
Yeah,
So
Tracy, you said this last night. I had a speaking engagement, virtual one, and about an hour before, my my brain was just going on all cylinders, and I said to myself, "No." And then I started having headache right around there, and I go, "Hold up, what do I do? What do I do?" And was go to sleep, take a nap. So I put the alarm on 10 minutes before the engagement and went to sleep. Verlin returned, said, "Aren't you going to take a shower?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to take a shower. I take a shower after." She
it's
says,
virtual.
"Nah." I know, right?
Nobody will know I'm smelling. It's okay.
She says, "Don't you want to take a shower?" I'm like, "No." She says, "When you take a shower, it's gonna, freshen you up." I'm like, "Okay." That shower turned to a haircut, shave, shower. When I sat down in this chair to start to speak, I thought about, didn't I have a headache a while ago? And it was like, nah, I don't. And that nap, shower, and just taking care of myself handled whatever that was going on. One, two,
Wow.
you talked about we talked about listening and speaking and finding out your environments, right? What's in there that can assist you. I remember, so my granddad would they would eat a lot of tuber. So tuber
Mhm.
and then plantains, so cassava, edos, uh, plantains, green bananas boiled with some
I just
pork
learned
or
about
whatever.
boiled green bananas
Oh
and the
dear.
benefits of them. I just learned. I was
Ooh,
like, "How did
it
I not
is
know this?"
super amazing. So
Mhm.
they ate that and they lived till 89, 90, 95. My father ate that because he was in their house. He lived till 86, 87. Now, with that information, what do you think I should do? Should I eat it or should I not? It's already in my DNA. It's already
It
part of
is.
me that this is the thing that fuels you to live, plus other choices. I can't come now and start come in this wherever I go and change my diet because my body knows how to perform with that kind of energy coming in there. And then the last thing is, my dad will always tell me, he says, wherever you go, if you have a problem, announce your problem, announce your sickness. Do not do not keep it to yourself because the
Mm,
solution is within earshot.
wow.
The solution to your problem is always within earshot. If you go and I'm shame. Now, do you see why it's going to switch up now? Where you hide your shame is where you will have the most problems. Where you tell yourself, let's just say I have a pornography problem, right? And I go, oh my goodness, I don't, and I stay in there and I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to fix it. And I'm studying at 2 a.m. in the morning and I get through studying and I'm like, I can't sleep. Oh, what do I do? Okay, I go to the NBA, watch some NBA, and then I'm like, oh, I still can't sleep. Very next thing is, this is something I don't want to do. I go in there and I do it. Me keeping that shame stays with me for quite a while or for my entire life. Unlike me coming on and saying or speaking to someone saying, I got a problem. I have a pornography problem, or I have a drinking problem, or I have an ache right here. And that person has gone through that and just tells you, oh, that ache, man, just do this, that, and the other. And do you know that oh, let me try it. Do you know that worked? I think that's humanity.
Yeah.
That's community. When we
It's
start
airing the wound. Didn't
to
they always
in
say air the wound?
there you
Like,
go.
give
There you go.
it air to breathe.
Mm.
That's what I keep thinking about. Yeah.
When we live our humanity in community, oh yeah, thank you, Lord. Um, this is where our remedies lie. But when we live in a bubble, you will have your bubble just like airing to dry. If it's not aired, the germ just seeps within
That's
that
it.
entire
It
ecosystem and
goes septic. Yeah.
eats, I guess, goes septic, and then you're there at loss. People, eavesdroppers, I tell you, don't be ashamed of what you're going through. Please do not be ashamed of it. What shame is a spirit that wants to keep you, and just what you were talking about, your daughter saying, what do I do? What do I do here? She gets the information, she go in, she makes a shake, boom, she's out in the gym. She's telling herself, she's having a communication with herself also. Now, that's another level of the conversation that when you woo, when you do
You're
not
getting it today.
when yeah, when you do not have the conversation with yourself, it's when that introspective aspect, when you're doing your introspection, we hide and run away from having conversations with ourselves. Like, I'm not going to have that. And you ignore it, and it sits there and it sits there, and it will come up. And when it comes up, it's going to be bigger. It's going to be worse than if you would have had the conversation and taken care of it. So when you have conversations with yourself, with others, the solution for your issues are right within those conversations.
exactly it.
Uh,
And I think that's what we've been reminded of this week. I would be so interested if anybody's listening, if they've had the same experience this week. That's the other thing that I find really fascinating is like you and I
mhm,
get this all the time. Where it's like, oh my
mhm,
gosh, me too. Oh my gosh, yesterday that similar thing happened, right? So if that, I mean, that synchronicity, like I don't believe in coincidence. I really do think that, we are here experiencing, somebody was talking about this thing the other day and they're like, we're all one. And so it's like when
mhm,
somebody is, they were talking about it in terms of if there's one person on this planet suffering, we're all suffering, right? If we're all power, if one person on this in this space of this planet is feeling empowered and vibrant, that energy goes to the whole world, right? Whether the world
mm,
wants to pick up on that or not, but we basically share this space. And I think the more we become, to your point, we become cognizant of the importance of knowing that,
mm,
right? Knowing that it isn't like we've been so conditioned to this me game, right? I have to get ahead. I have to take care of myself. And there's truth to that. There's truth to I'm responsible for me. I'm accountable for my life. But I think the larger picture is, we're all pieces of a larger humanity, right? If you think
yeah.
about humanity as being a body, we're each cells within
Mm,
that body, in that same body, right? So if the foot is infected, even though I'm up here in the hair somewhere, it's still affecting me because I'm a
yes.
part of the same body. So if that body is ill, right, it's going to affect all parts of the body.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's I just want to say one thing because I just always thought it was like interesting, that woman I was telling you about who does these walkabouts and stuff. I remember her telling the group one time, she said, if you look at your property and you start to learn what's growing there, you
Mhm.
will find, hey Carl,
Hey,
you
Carl.
will find that the exact things you need, like pay attention to what's growing closest to your house, and the actual uh, the actual placement of things
Correct.
growing, whether you put them there or not, is has something to do with what you need. And so what's interesting is I look at, we have this little space right by the back porch, like we have a screened-in porch and the steps off the back porch. We
Uh-huh.
have pots of herbs. And some of the herbs kind of reseeded themselves, and so we keep it all trimmed up and everything, but it's kind of this whole area of growing things that are all edible.
Mhm,
And the things that, and I said, oh, that's so funny because um, oregano has kind of taken over in this space,
mhm.
as has mint, which will both, they both do tend to spread even out of pots. And she said, well, let me tell you the properties of both of those because you need them. They have chosen to grow
Wow.
closest to your, I mean, even though you kind of put the pots there, they're really taking off right there at your back steps within easy arm's reach because you need them. You need them. So put more of them. What they're trying to do is get you to eat more of them. They're producing more because they want you to take in more, right, of them. You need more of them. They're having a conversation with you.
Gosh.
And I just thought that was so cool. I just thought that was so cool. Yeah. So
Wow. I'm getting goosebumps on me, you know. It's so simple but yet so complex,
yeah.
right? As you were taught you so what Tracy just spoke about was pay attention to what's the proximity of things
What's
that
showing up
grow
closest to you? People,
closest to
herbs,
you.
you need it.
Correct. Is what you need. And then as you were saying that, I remember a Bible verse, Acts 17:26 says, from one man he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands.
Mm,
The way I take that verse is wherever you were born. I'm not saying immigration and migration is wrong, but there's a reason for the era you were born. There's a reason you came in the 70s, the 80s, so that you could live between the 1970s and the 2050s. There's a reason you were placed on the boundary that you were placed in. If you were in America, if you migrated to Africa or Europe or wherever it is, there is a reason. So the same way how you're saying, uh, pay attention to those things. I've paid attention to why was I born in Liberia, West Africa? which is a blessing for me. Where you were born, do not say, "Oh, I'm an American. I wanted to be a European. I want to be born in Italy, or I wanted to be born in Russia, or Asia." No, there's a reason you were born an African. There's a reason my forefathers went through what they went through in a migration within slavery, and why I find myself in Africa, and now I find myself migrating to the United States for school and etc. And then at 50, he says, move back to Africa. There's a reason I'm going back to Africa. There's a reason I live in Africa now. I have to embrace it and truly find out why am I here? My experiences and everything that I've been through, there's a reason I'm sitting in this particular location now to share this so that others may understand. And that's why they're in my orbit, in my eco. It's just like what you're saying. The plants are here for a reason.
Yes.
Those people are around me for a reason so that I could share what I know and they could share with me so that we could both grow together as a
Yeah, I
body.
love that. That's
Oh
so
my
beautiful.
goodness. That's
Well, and you know
amazing.
what's really crazy as you were talking, I was thinking, yeah, that really applies to me too, because a lot of people are like, well, how did you end up in North Carolina if you're from Denver,
Mm.
Colorado? And I said to me, it's interesting because I actually, a lot of it had to do with school, my undergrad. I
Uh-huh.
started in Rhode Island, and then a lot of my friends from Massachusetts. So then I moved to Massachusetts after I left, after grad school, and came back for grad school. So it's back and forth. Like I left for undergrad, came back for grad school, left again
Mm-hmm.
to start my career, and
Mm-hmm.
then I've just made it south. Well, my father's the whole family, the plantation, we talked about that,
Correct.
all started in the south.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the one thing growing up. I'm like, my mom's side of the family pretty much was in the West. I mean, they
Okay.
originally came from somewhere else, but like that, they'd been in the West for a long time. My dad actually moved from the South when he was 5 to Colorado
Mm.
with my grandmother, and you know, so there was this whole side of the family that I had heard all these stories about, and I had no connection with whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would oftentimes say that growing up. It's like, it's so weird because I've never been to the South. I've never, I'm not really called to this. And I've just kept moving. I mean, not because I'm going towards family, but I moved from, Massachusetts to Maryland, Maryland to North Carolina. Like it just keeps going south. And and of course, the further south you get, the more Southern culture there is. It's
Correct.
very similar here than it is
Mm.
to Georgia, where
Yeah.
Georgia, Alabama, that whole area where
Mm.
my father's family's from.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that cultural, and one of the things that I found when I moved here to North Carolina is just how comfortable I felt. And I've never lived
Wow.
in the South, but
Mm-hmm.
it felt very much like home. It reminded
Wow.
me, the people remind me a lot of Coloradoans, at least when I was growing up there. So I kind of equated to that. But the more and more, and what's crazy is I'm meeting all these people with the last name Brooks, and that was my grandmother's maiden name.
Wow.
So most likely we're somehow related.
Related. Yes. Yeah.
I just had a client whose last name is Brooks, and it's just exactly what you're saying. Is
Mm.
it's kind of like this unconscious consciousness, like we have consciousness that's not just cognitive. It's like so. I was just heavily thinking about my mom Monday and yesterday, and just on my mind, on my heart, on my mind, like just
Mm.
so much blessings and gratitude for her life, and
Mm.
and then my brother texted me yesterday morning, like thinking of mom, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so interesting. He's thinking of mom too, and so it
Mm.
just was this good feeling. And I'm like, well, what are you thinking about? And so it was just text back and forth, and I had a chiropractor or acupuncture appointment, and I was
Mm-hmm.
sharing with my acupuncturist. I'm sharing this with her, and she says, "Well, is today a special event? Is today a special significant day?" And suddenly, I'm like, "Oh my
Oh
gosh,
my
it's her
goodness.
birthday!"
Oh my goodness.
And I wasn't even cognitively aware, but there was this part of me that was consciously aware because and it was a reminder to me that it's a
Mm.
lot of times when someone's on your heart, it isn't just because it's their birthday or whatever, and we think it's because it's their birthday because we know it's their birthday, and really there's more to it than that. There's a deeper connection point, and that was really cool. And then of course it made me think, because she and I had birthdays 9 days apart, so I would always call her for her birthday, and then I'd call her 9 days later for my birthday to thank her. So it's just, it's
Mm,
revisiting the connections, right?
mm,
Revisiting, and it's bittersweet, and sometimes it
yep,
makes you cry, and sometimes it makes you laugh, and
yeah.
but it's connective. I think
Wow.
that's what we're talking about here, is our connection to our knowledge, our connection to food, our connection to what heals us, our connection to one another. Like, it
Mm,
just feels very much like we're awakening to all the various ways in which we're connected.
wow. Amazing. And you talked about your mom. I a couple months, no, last month, we went to Verlin's uh high school convention reunion.
Oh, her
And
reunion, yeah.
and while we were there, uh this man who was on a board with Verlin started to, when he heard her last name, said, which port? And who's your husband's dad or whomever? And she said, was he and he preempts and doesn't even allow her to answer. Was he a plumber? And she says, yeah. He was like, Mr. Port? So when I met him, we're buffet line about to go and get food. He says, how are you? I'm fine. He says, so you are Verlin something? Like, yeah. He says, your dad was Leopold Port? I'm like, yeah, Leopold. He says, that man was a master plumber. I tell you, that man knew pipes. He knew what he knew water. He knew how to engineer. Oh my goodness. And he and my brother were best friends. And that man kept on going. He starts to talk about how when dad would go to the house and how dad was this and that. And I knew who my dad was. And he was explaining how my dad was outside of me with others. It was the same way he was with me, and how jovial and oh, he was a crazy. And I was like, and I just sat there, and as you were saying, how it sometimes makes you laugh, sometimes makes you cry, sometimes it puts a tear in your eye. And a tear just got in my eye, and I was like, oh, wow, wow. So my dad connected with this man some time ago that when I wasn't there, that today it's coming to a full manifestation that he brings it back up about my dad. And I was just, oh, wow, warm fuzzies, and it's
Yeah.
just so important. I say this and I'll punt back to you. It's just so important how we live, that we live in a community and live and just live properly. Not looking at the next bad move Tracy is going to do, the bad move Carl is going to do, and then I'm going to go and announce it. I'm breaking news. Just now, Tracy Waltman Phillips walked outside with a banana costume. Can you imagine that? Tracy of all persons. Nah.
Well, anybody who
It's-
knows me can definitely imagine that.
I know. So we have to be our guardians of one another. We have to be guardians of one another. I'm not saying if someone does wrong, I don't go to them and tell them with love what you're doing, but we just have to guard and guide, because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me.
Mm,
Come to me and tell me what my issue is. But back to connection, deeper connections. I truly believe what we're talking today is connection to the land, connection to people, connection to the spirits, connection. Just these things are there to aid us into becoming better beings to live in this time and space for this time and space. Mm,
when you're talking about, like, we wouldn't want other people to judge us, why are we judging, other people, type of thing. It's like, it was funny because this woman who was sitting next to me yesterday, and she
mm,
said to me, she goes, when you first walked in, I wouldn't have taken you for an executive coach. And I said, you'd take me for like a hippie, wouldn't you? And she started laughing. She was not necessarily a hippie, but I mean, I walk in, I have no makeup. I'm wearing my workout
flowing.
clothes. And, cause it was comfy day. It was
Mm,
Tracy spa day. I went from my acupuncturist to my IV therapy, so, and she said, but the more I'm talking to you,
mm,
you really have this interesting, it kind of throws people off. You've got
mm,
this, like, I can totally see you as a professional person in corporate type of thing. It's like, you've got this, like, again, like, when I hear your brain, I can
mm.
totally see the professional side. When I look at you, I feel like Earth Mama, and I was like, yeah, I hear that from a lot of
I
people
love
who know me
that.
well. So, like, you just talked to me for like half an hour and you've picked that up. But I think that that's the thing is it's been very hard for me to embrace that because I think a lot of times it's like, ooh, we're so conditioned to look the part. And when people
Mm,
are like, you don't look the part, it's like, oh my God, how can I change myself to look more the part? And what I've realized in my life is that what actually makes me effective is a little bit of that cognitive dissonance that comes along with me when you meet me,
mm,
right? Is that you're like, okay, like her brain feels very, familiar to my world, or her look feels very familiar, but her brain doesn't feel, or something. There's that, but we're all like that. We're all so complex, but so simple at the same time. And I think if we embrace who we are, even in that complexity, it
mm,
becomes very simple to be with one another. Right?
mm.
It's like we wanna almost, like, be confused by the com com
Complexity.
complexity
Mhm.
that we can't be with one another, and
Mm,
I just thought it was and she said it in such a almost, like, childlike way, like, "You're really 2 different things," and I thought, "That is so cool," because I have come to really be okay with that. I like actually like that about myself, that
yeah.
I'm a bit of that, people don't quite know where to put me.
Mhm.
Um, and that's okay. It's also okay if you do easily fit. It's not like there's no one way. It's not like, oh, you gotta be like cognitively dissonant, in order to
Mm-mm.
be special. Like
Correct.
I think unicorns can come in all shapes and sizes, but the whole point is acceptance of self as
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there would have been a time that it would have felt like an offense if somebody was like, I would not have taken you for, whatever.
Wow.
And it was really a wonderful moment of realizing, yeah, yeah, that's probably why somebody else is seeing it in that way is because I've accepted it in that way.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We traveled to North Carolina 2 days ago, so we're at
You're
the
in North
airport.
Carolina now?
Yes, I am.
I thought so. I was like, you're in someone's home.
Didn't you see this different studio?
I did. I see the different you have studios all over the world. I get it.
Um, we're at the airport and the gate announces we're giving up 2 seats for, $500 each if you would like. And this is the first time we're sitting in the airport in a long time that we're not rushing anywhere. So Verlin says, "Ha, let's do it." So Verlin runs in front. I'm like, okay, go ahead. She gets there. Someone beats her to it, and I get there. So we're three in line. Person says, I say, we're sorry, but you know what? Give us your boarding passes. And if we do need it, you can go ahead and switch. I'm like, okay. So I sit down. Uh, I mean, people are observing you. Everything you do, people are observing you, and
Especially in this day and age,
you're
everybody's looking at
grateful. You're grateful if they can come and express it to you. So this lady comes. She's about 75, tiny old white Caucasian lady. She comes in. She plops right near me, and there are chairs, seats empty. She sits. Boom. She says, "Hi." And she's so petite and cute, and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" She goes, "I saw you and your wife just now. Your wife just jumped up and ran to get that, and you just sat down and you didn't even move. Why?" I'm like, "Because I'm just not the guy to jump on that. She's the person who jumps on these things, and she calls me. She's like, okay, I saw that." And then we start to talk. She says, "Well," she's from Chapel Hill. She says, "We had a lot of storms and rains in Chapel Hill, and if it's still there," I'm like, "Yeah, I did hear that." She starts to talk. Then she says, "I believe lightning strikes an area with a lot of silica." She says that, and I say, "Really?" I said, "Well, you know what? Shoot." I jumped online and said, "Where does lightning strike? Our
the most.
geographic terrains how affect where lightning strike?" And then it goes, "Yeah, but a lot of protons in the ground." I'm like, "Where are a lot of protons? But protons are in every atom, and atom is in the ground everywhere." So I looked at her and said, "So stop carrying information." She laughs. We laugh, and then she says, "This is the first time I have said something, and the person who I've said it to said, let's investigate it. Let's find out what's going on. And we have found out what I'm saying is wrong. And now I know even more. I'm like, yeah, and it's free. Then she says, are you a professor? I said, no, I'm not a professor. She said, you're an engineer. I said, well, background's engineering and MBA. She says, I can see that. And we just went into conversations that took us any and everywhere. Verlin's on my right side going, okay, and then I pull her in and she's on a computer and she would talk. But and she forgets her, she's talking to us. It says Borden Zone X, and I look at her. She's like, "Why are you looking?" I said, "They just call your zone, you know." She says, "Oh my goodness, I'm enjoying this conversation. I gotta go. Take care." It was such a refreshing conversation in the airport that connecting with her, learning something new because we were open to learn something new. What I'm finding out is quit rushing. Quit,
Yeah.
quit rushing. One, two, quit stereotyping because I would have been okay. I'm this 6'3" black dude with a white. Why is this 5'3"
She's
person speaking to me? And I, all right, or I don't. I'm not having a conversation with you because what's going on in the country? I don't like white people, or I don't like black people. Big black men are burglars, or what? Whatever stereotype we have. Quit stereotyping because again, right in your area where you are, your solutions are there. I don't know what the solution I got from her, but I'm pretty sure I got something. Something in me grew, something in me leavened up. I know
you
something
got to
in her.
see yourself
You,
through
you
that
know,
side.
correct.
I think that's how I feel for the last two people on Monday and Tuesday. I got to see myself. I got to see what I'm attracting. That is a
Yes.
mirror for who I am. And I actually, you and I both got to see something we liked about ourselves. That's not always the case.
Mm,
Sometimes we attract things and we're like, oh, and then we're like, oh, oh, that's in me. Oh, but yeah, we got to see ourselves through the lens of someone because they were drawn. I mean, this woman was drawn to you like
she
bees to
was.
honey, literally.
I mean, she just got there. She just came and sat down and just started to explain. I'm like, and I noticed I knew it because I looked at the seats around. Seats were there, and I said, "No, this is the reason she's sitting here." So you know what? We are gonna live this up, and it's the our ability to read the room, read
To be in the room. Yeah.
correct, be in there, and as you always say, human being is the being present in the room and observing and saying. Another thing that happened in the airport, I'm going to share this one. This
Slowing
is
down. It speaks to slowing down. It's like my
this
daughter slowing down to listen to her body. Like you
correct.
will be drawn to something if you slow down and start being present with your
Mm,
space. You'll be like, "Ooh, I want to go talk to so and so. Ooh, I want to go. I need to go, get a drink of water. Oh, I
mm,
need to just again. I think you said it. Like
mm.
it's being present.
Yeah.
And if we're thinking about a million things and rushing around, we're not present. We're not going to
Mm.
pick up on the glory of the moment in the present and who we're surrounded by. Oh no, you froze. Come back. All right, I'm going to have a soliloquy again, apparently.
We're on. Yeah. Thank goodness. I don't know what's happening here. But no, you were saying being present and not rushing. The next thing is there's another airport episode. We're sitting in the airport about to go to Ohio. A lady with 5 kids are sitting next to us, and they are just rambunctious, ranging from ages 10, 9, 8, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. She said, I just got pregnant every year after, and I heard her say it. So she's sitting down, and the oldest is really expressive. And mom, the airplane is leaving at 9:55 a.m. We're supposed to be boarding, and they are not boarding. It's 9:57. It's almost 10 o'clock. What's wrong? He's asking his mom this, and his mom says, well, they will let us know when they're about to board, so it's out of mom's control.
Mhm.
This kid says There you go again. You're lying again. So I turn and look at
Uh-oh.
him.
Yeah, I was
I,
gonna say,
I,
uh-oh.
I
Well, it's
looked at
like,
him,
mm-mm.
but I think I've gotten I don't know what has gotten over me. I've mellowed out. So I looked at him and I'm like, and I looked at her and she's embarrassed. Uh, this gentleman comes from, and it's a African American family. This African American guy comes, big dude, just sits right near him. I'm sitting near him. He says, "What's your issue?" He says, "You got an issue, right?" He says, "Yes, I do." So I think it may have been has a mental issue or something. So the
Yeah, I was
guy's
gonna say it
engaging him.
sounds spectrumy, like, kids that are
Yes,
really on like, they're following the time or they're following
correct,
the way things
correct.
yeah, it sounds very spectrumy.
So he says, "I know you have an issue, but there you go. Your issue doesn't allow you to disrespect your mom. So you better sit down and behave yourself." So I'm going, I'm looking, and the kid goes, "Yes, sir." And he sits properly. Respect me doesn't mean that you can't talk to someone and say, "Behave yourself." The
Right.
guy, he does this. I look at him and I say, "Thank you, sir." I said, "You know what you said is just what I would have said, but I'm not just not in a mood to engage like this." We get in the plane, we sit down. Who comes and sit next to us? This guy. He sits next to us and we're talking from one thing to another. And it ends up, "Oh, I have PTSD and da da da." And I'm like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden he goes, "We said, what do you do?" He said, "Well, I'm ex special forces."
Yeah, I was gonna say he was ex-military. Wow.
I'm like, so my Verlin says, "Where have you been?" He says, "If I tell you I have to kill you." I'm like, "Yeah, you have to kill you, honey." We're talking, and all of a sudden he brings up the information about his brother. His brother is Navy SEAL.
Wow.
He's an ex SEAL. So I'm like, what happened in your house in terms that you guys excel at the highest level of? I said, "So what's the percentage?" He says 3% get in.
Yeah,
I was at West Point, and in West Point, I transferred. They told me to go in here, and 3% of us got in. I'm like, three
yeah.
percent?
Special services especially. I mean, Navy SEALs,
Come
you
on.
you meet a SEAL, and as much as so many of them are writing books, right now, like, you think they're everywhere. Nuh-uh. But
No, they're
special
not.
forces even less so.
Less.
That's
And I
amazing.
go, and Special
Wow,
Forces sitting next to me and having a conversation, right? And I'm like,
that's
what?
awesome.
And again, it's connections about things around you. It's just so amazing that these things happen every day, Tracy. That we just have to know that they're happening, be
Yeah,
available to them. Mm,
100%.
back to you,
And you
sis.
said it, being aware, right? Being observant. That's my favorite question. I think I've shared this before is asking clients, what
Mm,
are you noticing right now?
wow.
And it brings a sense of awareness. It's broad enough where it's not like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? Which is very specific. Well, at
Mm,
least to a certain intelligence. What are you noticing? Because what we notice comes from our awareness. And our awareness, again, to the point of me forgetting my mother's birthday, but knowing my mother's birthday, comes in a lot of forms. We think awareness is only cognitive. It's not.
mm,
It's not.
mm.
I mean, it's consciousness, right? Like, if we're conscious, but we can also be aware and not conscious, right? We
Correct.
can we can
Correct.
not be aware of what we're aware of, right?
Hmm.
In the sense that we cannot be conscious of what we're aware of. I'm aware of
Correct.
something, so that noticing bridges that gap between consciousness and actual noticing or awareness.
Mm,
So a lot of people think awareness is cognitive, only, and it's not.
mm.
So that's the key piece is are you open, right? Are you allowing yourself to notice things, and then are you conscious of what you're noticing? And the consciousness gets brought in when you ask a question. I'm pulling in all sorts of data right now, but I not may
Mm.
not be conscious of that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
somebody says, "What are you noticing?" And then I'm like, "Oh, again, to your point, stop, pause." That's come up so much, the power of the pause, and that has come up in
Mm.
like a gazillion
Oof.
conversations that I've had, not just me, like that have been brought up around me
Yeah.
in the last couple weeks, but pausing, slowing down, asking ourselves that question because again, once we become, it's not just aware. Like everybody's like, oh, it's all about awareness. I'm like, the consciousness piece is kind of important if we want to be
Mm,
intentional, because we actually have to know from from a cognitive standpoint what we're dealing with to actively intentionally deal. I mean, no, we don't. Like we'll be doing it unconsciously, but in order to consciously
mm,
and intentionally work on it,
I
or
like that.
be in the magic of it, even not just even work, we don't always have to change everything, we can just be there.
I
But if
like
we're not consciously aware that we're being there, we're going to miss a lot of the magic, right? We may
I
still be
like
like, oh, this really cool lucky thing happened, we're still going to know some of it, but really get the mind-blowing magical aspects of it, we
mm,
kind of have to be fully on board. And that's another reason why having the four intelligences really being something we're constantly working on is so
mm,
fabulous. It's not only for good decision making, it's so that we can experience on all these levels the
mm,
magical life that we are actually gifted to have right now. Like the fact that our souls are in this body and we get to have this experience being in this particular body right now is
mm,
magical within itself. It's a
mm.
gift, it's a blessing, it's a miracle, it's all those things. Who it's your birthday?
So Sylvester, he listens. He's been listening over the years, and he says, "Today's my birthday." Oh,
Happy birthday, Sylvester. That's awesome. Another July baby. I love July birthdays.
oh man, go ahead. He's a
Yeah, but
crazy
I mean,
one.
I know we're at time, but this is what it is I
Yeah.
think what we're speaking to today is the connection of all these things. And then when we really are in it, when we're allowing it to be, like, that's another thing is, I know that Mel Robbins wrote a book, Let Them, that's been really popular. A lot of people are reading it, listening to it on Audible. And, she
Mm-hmm.
talks a lot more about it within the book, as far as I know, because I haven't really read it. So I'm kind of assuming based on what I've heard other people say, is don't worry about what other people are doing. Just focus on
Mm,
what you like. Let them, if they don't like what you're doing, let them, let them see you in whatever way they choose to see you. Let them do what they
mm,
need to do. Let them to their life and let you to yours. But I also think of letting it, allowing things to happen. Let it
mm,
be. Let things be as they are. Even if it
mm.
breaks your expectation or your desire or whatever. I mean, if it is that way, it is the way it is. Let it, because there's some things that I've been kind of munching on for quite some time and having a hard time like letting it be that. Like I keep wanting
Mm.
to change it in my mind, like give it a different story or a slightly different, like, to be able to sit with it. But like, can I just accept it as how it is without all of the special sauce and just be with it? Because then I'm finding when I do, I see what I'm supposed to see from it.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
never could because I was always trying to pretty the pig. Right?
Mm,
And I wasn't just being with the pig. Like, you don't have to pretty the pig to be okay to be with the pig. Just be with the
mm,
pig, because being with it as is exactly maybe what you're missing, because you're
mm.
spending all this time and energy trying to pretty it up so that you can be okay with it.
Yes,
Actually, you could be
yes,
okay much better with it by just letting it be. And
yeah.
that's been a huge thing for me lately. That's been really beautiful.
Talking about pigs, Holly Springs. I'm driving on a suburban highway, and I see two potbellies, and their bellies are rubbing, dragging the ground. And I say, "Oh my goodness, there goes some nice bacon. Why is it here in the suburbs, just sitting there eating our lawn? We should." I'm sorry, I went in a bad place.
It's all right. We eat pigs. I mean,
Oh, oh my goodness. But Tracy, I tell you, we've come to what, 2 minutes. Take us. Oh, so I see Sylvester's putting something on here. I love and admire this show. A lot of lessons learned. Thanks for everything. Hey,
thank you,
hey,
Sylvester, and happy birthday. If we
I
can bring
know.
any kind of anything to your special day, we're happy to do it.
This guy has some fingers. I tell you, Tracy. You know
Long
what I
fingers?
mean? No, when I say, "Oh, now Tracy, you gotta get your card, girl." Once when you go somewhere and it says Tracy's got fingers, it means when Tracy puts the ingredients in the pot, it is sweet like nobody's business.
Ooh, really?
He's a master chef
That's
when it comes to grilling and
where
he's the
where
guy.
Sylvester, where do
Remember,
you live?
he lives in Georgia, in Atlanta.
Ah, George.
But remember, we had a conversation here about 2 or 3 years ago, and it was mind blowing for him. You remember?
I
You will
remember. I
remember.
remember that. Yeah.
And he was the one who he's a network architect who
Mm.
cooks very well, and his passion is cooking. It's calling him, and he's doing networking, and we're like, man, go and do what God has put you on this
Yeah,
earth
I
to
remember
do,
that.
so
I
but
love
hey,
that.
we've come to this beautiful hour, Tracy. It's always been a pleasure talking with you. i
Likewise.
I love it. And thank you for allowing us to connect and do this every single time.
Back at you, my friend. Back at you. And
Uh,
thanks for everybody who's fun following us and who stopped in today. That's it's fun. I mean, it's just knowing there's the potential of somebody out there and connecting, and I think even if we don't know who's there, we're picking up on the energy of whoever is there, and it is affecting us in some way. So thank you.
hey, take care, Tracy. See you in
All
2 weeks.
right. See ya.
Oh, bye bye.